signs multi-million-dollar grant aid agreement with Japan. Government lobbying for citizen support for anti-money laundering bill and contracts for science and technology advancement handed over to UG. You're watching Weekly Digest, a production of the Government Information Agency that keeps you updated on what the government has been doing. With the details, I'm your host, Edith Mishra. The local private sector is the beneficiary of a US $2.9 million non-project grant aid agreement recently signed between the governments of Guyana and Japan.
This is a demonstration of Japan being a true friend of Guyana, a further demonstration indeed, as Japan has over the years provided quite a lot of resources to our dear country. You would remember the New Amsterdam Hospital, the Karivaton Water Supply Project. Japan has also provided resources for us to conduct work with the Water Conservancy, and also we have been benefiting from scholarships. Today, the signing of these exchange of notes is for 300 million yen, which is approximately 2.9 million US dollars. And it's a non-project grant aid agreement. What will happen is these funds will be made available for lending to the private sector. And it's a very unique mechanism. The private sector will then, once they would have repaid the government, the funds will be used for development in Guyana.
This type of lending arrangement is not novel in Guyana. It has been going on since 1987. There is an agreed list of items that can be purchased by members of the private sector who are desirous of accessing the financing. These include civil engineering equipment and electric power machinery that are necessary to drive infrastructural works.
The government of Japan is keenly interested in the progress of Guyana and the Caribbean in general, and so remains committed to the development of the region through focus on investment to achieve such advancement. Japan and Guyana have long enjoyed and benefited from friendly relations. In fact, this year we are celebrating the Japan CARICOM Friendship Year.
This year marks 2 decades since the first Japan CARICOM consultation in 1993. This milestone will be commemorated as Japan CARICOM Friendship Year. Over the years, relations between Guyana and Japan have resulted in Guyana benefiting from several developmental projects and the provision of scholarships. Guyana's economic progress has been recognized by the Washington-based Wall Street Journal Heritage Foundation's Economic Freedom Index. The organization recently ranked Guyana at 121 out of 178 countries with a score of 55.7, about 2 points higher than that of last year. Over the 20-year history of the index, Guyana has advanced its economic freedom by 10 points. This overall increase has been achieved by enhancements in 7 of the 10 economic freedoms, notably the management of public spending, freedom from corruption, and monetary freedom, the scores for which have improved by 10 points or more. The report stated that this increase reflected notable score increases in control of government spending and investment freedom. It noted that Guyana had slipped back into the economically repressed status during the late 2000s, but had risen out of this category since 2012 and recorded its highest score in 8 years in the 2014 index. The country has been experiencing real growth of gross domestic product of approximately 5% per annum for the past 8 years as a direct result of the conducive policy framework that the government has put in place. The government is calling on Guyanese citizens to demand more from their political leaders and to let their positions on the anti-money laundering and countering the financing of terrorism amendment bill be heeded.
During a recent press conference at the National Communications Network, Minister within the Ministry of Finance, Juan Ejil, said it is time for Guyanese to embrace a nationalistic stance on the issue given the risk to which the country as a whole will be exposed.
I believe that when people elect governments and their representatives to the National Assembly, and their representatives are acting contrary to their wishes, people need to speak out against it. And it is for this particular reason that I believe all citizens, organizations, groups must be engaged in the debate on this particular matter. Their voices must be heard. It's not a time to take sides between PPP and APNU or AFC, it's time for all Guyanese to be patriotic and to embrace what could be best described as nationalism to protect the economic future of this country.
If Ghana does not pass the bill and become compliant as early as possible, not only will commercial transactions be affected, but the country's ability to access developmental funds.
Guyana's developmental agenda is on the line here. And that is why those who are sitting on the fence and seem to think that this is a big furrow between the political people in the parliament and the APNU and the government and the AFC, they can't get it right, leave the fellas to fight each other. Somewhere along the line, they're going to make a compromise and something is going to work out. We can't maintain that position. We have come from dark days, and we don't want dark days to return to Guyana.
Over the past few weeks, government ministers have embarked on a sensitization campaign in various communities, targeting citizens to make their voices heard on this matter through letters, petitions, and statements.
There's more to come. Please stay tuned.
The modernization of the Justice Administration System, the MJAS project, has been completed through a loan from the Inter-American Development Bank. Achievements made under the project include amended and new laws, training for personnel within the sector, reduction of the severe case backlog, the refurbishing of courts, increased numbers of judicial officers and training, publication of law reports and their indices online, the establishment of a DPP office in Berbice, computerization of several connected systems, among other aspects.
Guyana as a tourist destination continues to receive international acclaim. The reputable National Geographic Traveler has named Destination Guyana as one of the must-see places in 2014. The renowned magazine said Guyana is the best-kept secret in South America with stunning natural wonders. This year, increased focus will be placed on enhancing the standards within the industry, focusing on tourism products and services, multi-destination itinerary planning, events management, ecotourism, and sustainable principles and guidelines, as well as a grading scheme which will be developed for the industry.
In an effort to better their lives, more than 42,000 pensioners are currently enjoying a 25% increase in their pension. This is in addition to the waiver of the Guyana Water Incorporated's bill. And in another attempt to enhance their lives, over 8,500 pensioners are benefiting from $20,000 subsidy yearly towards their electricity bills with the Guyana Power and Light Incorporated.
Guyana has achieved universal primary education. The focus is now on achieving universal secondary education by 2016. This has already been achieved in some regions, but more work has to be done in regions 1, 7, 8, and 9. There are plans to build and extend more schools with the intent that every single child of secondary age will be able to access a 5-year secondary education program in each region.
Efforts at combating the vector-borne disease malaria in Guyana is bearing fruit, so much so that in 2013 the country experienced a 15% reduction in the number of reported cases.
There were 31,602 reported cases of malaria in 2012, but only 23,498 cases in 2013. Government has achieved sustainable control over the disease using a combination of approaches and tools, the biggest being the distribution of nets to disease-prone areas.
We have distributed in 2013 over 42,000 nets. These nets come at a cost, a huge cost. One bed net, because there are different types of nets. There are bed nets and there are hammock nets. One bed net costs $6 US, $6.50 US to be exact. Now these nets have to obviously be procured, which comes at a cost for shipping, handling, etc. And this is before they get to Guyana. This is not even factored in the distribution cost. So if we were to have a rough idea of how much each net costs, it would be probably in the excess of between 8,000 to 10,000 Guyanese dollars.
Fogging or spraying with insecticides is also another intervention being utilized and targeting locations where stagnant water can become potential breeding grounds for mosquitoes. There is also the distribution of information and education and communication materials, along with the free sharing out of anti-malarial drugs.
One of the major reasons why people die of malaria in Guyana, because it's not supposed to happen. We have the drugs, We have the right diagnostic methods. We do everything to a high standard, a high level. And persons are really not supposed to die from malaria in Guyana, but we have a lot of persons that neglect themselves. They neglect medical advice, or they refuse medical advice to some extent. And this is some persons, I'm not speaking about everyone, but yeah, some persons do that, and they drink the illegal drugs, the drugs which the Ministry of Health does not provide, the drugs which the efficacy or the strength is not known. We don't know if it's counterfeit, if it's real drugs, and they buy it from the shops. So this is actually one big cause of concern for us, because we have the best drug in the world, and it's free, available to the public, and we don't see a reason why persons should buy the drugs at the shop and pay for it, and we have the best drugs.
As a result of these interventions, most of the facilities in Guyana, if not all, are today seeing less persons with malaria infections.
This year will be no different for the Guyana Police Force in terms of being provided with adequate financial resources for the needs of this institution, which is tasked with the maintenance of law and order in Guyana.
Over the years, the government has ensured that through a budgetary allocation, the Guyana Police Force is equipped to carry out its mandate to serve and protect. The record of accomplishment will show that there has been significant growth and development within the force thanks to resources allocated. Emphasis has not only been placed on physical resources, but also on enhancing human resource capacity through training. During the period 2007 to 2012, construction, rehabilitation, and repair of offices and buildings across the Guyana Police Force for Guyana amounted to about $662 million Guyana dollars. In 2007, the rehabilitation of the narcotics and fingerprinting building at Ivleri, Georgetown was done to the value of $17.8 million. The force over the years has also benefited from large allocations which went towards boosting mobility, with the Home Affairs Ministry handing over vehicles to be used in different divisions, including interior locations.
This is a good example that demonstrates the commitment of the government to continue providing the requisite resources to the Guyana Police Force in order that they may continue effectively carrying out their lawful duties.
The Felix Austin Police Training Wing, Ivleri, has been extended at a cost of $10.7 million. The Tactical Services Unit Barracks, Police Headquarters, also repaired, as well as the Monkey Mountain Police Station. In 2009, a commander's living quarters and training facility at the Felix Austin Police College were constructed at a cost of over $24 million Guyana dollars, whilst the lockups at Brickdam Police Station, the Richard Fical Police College at Surrey, the Traffic Officers Recreation and Training Area, and the Felix Austin Police College at Venture Quarantine were all rehabilitated at a cost of over $34 million. In 2012, the Guyana Police Force saw the construction of the New Amsterdam Central Police Station, which was done at a cost of $51.7 million. Several other police stations and lockups were rehabilitated, whilst a police outpost was constructed at Santa Cruz. Altogether, these projects amounted to over $142 million. The approved expenditure for 2013 stood at over $140 million. That figure covered projects including the rehabilitation of the junior officers' quarters at Ivleri and the construction of the upper flat of the Brickdam lockups, the latter costing over $50 million Guyana dollars.
Meanwhile, the Education Ministry is urging parents to register children for nursery school early, as the age change for early entry takes effect in September.
The Ministry of Education expects about 3,000 more children entering nursery schools due to the age change to 3 years, 3 months. Enrollment for children born on or before June 30 and who are eligible for placement has commenced. Parents and guardians are urged to enroll their child or children as soon as possible at the school nearest to their home.
Children this year are really fortunate because last year it used to be you had to turn 3 by the end of March. But because we know children in the world have evolved and our Guyanese children are not left behind and they too have evolved, our children are actually ready for school earlier. And so the Ministry of Education, in meeting the evolving society, meeting the needs of that society, we've changed the age for registration. And now if a child turns 3 in the year, if a child turns 3 by June, the end of June, and the year they turn 3, they can go to school in September.
With effect from September 2014, children can enter the formal education system 6 months earlier than previously obtained. Although this level of education is not mandatory, most children in Guyana begin their academic education at this level.
We don't want children turning up on September morning and schools are not ready because we don't have enough furniture, we didn't put enough teachers in place because of this increased number. And so to help us prepare to teach your child, to give your child the best start possible, we need parents to get their children registered now for nursery. And we're asking all parents, mothers, fathers, grandparents, guardians, to go to the school closest to your home and get your child registered.
As customary, parents or guardians are asked to provide the child's birth certificate and clinic card at the time of registration, along with the parent's national identification card and proof of address. Parents who are employed or work at the school, example teacher, vendor, cleaner, gardener, handyman, will be given priority amongst the parents who appeal a placement for his or her child or children at that school at which the said parent is employed.
Works are progressing smoothly under the multi-million-dollar Tree Parks initiative being undertaken by the Natural Resources Ministry.
The project that targets the Joe Vera, the National and the Guyana Zoological Parks have thus far seen significant progress. Work has been done in several areas of each of the parks. These include the completion of the fence and excavation of the pond to prevent regrowth of vegetation at Joe Vera, sand filling, and approximately 85% completion of the track at the National Park, and the completion of the foundation at the Zoological Park, among many others.
This was a significant amount of investment that the government made in the Tree Parks initiative, with the zoo, the botanic garden, upgrading this, but it doesn't also include singularly this particular track and field, but there are also some revetment work and other development around putting in bridges, looking at some other areas. And then at Joe Vera Park, the fence, reclaiming it for the pool, the pond there, and working with the residents and citizens of West Demerara too. So it is create these modern green spaces.
The vision behind the upgrade at the National Park is not only focused on providing a quality park for family time, but is also linked to the development of athletes.
The park is an important place for a lot of schools and the development of young athletes. Schools that don't have their own fields, their own tracks, come to the National Park. And the idea what we wanted to achieve is to provide a facility for the youth of Guyana.
There's more to come. Please stay tuned.
Guyana is set to achieve the goal set by the United Nations Children's Fund UNICEF of universal birth registration by 2015. The General Register Office has launched an intensive campaign. It has decentralized its services to specifically cater to the needs of residents living in the interior location. Bedside registration is also done in several public hospitals. There are now 200 registration centers operating in 10 regions. Citizens are urged to ensure that all births are registered.
Guyana as a tourist destination continues to receive international acclaim. The reputable National Geographic Traveler has named Destination Guyana as one of the must-see places in 2014. The renowned magazine said Guyana is the best-kept secret in South America with stunning natural wonders. This year, increased focus will be placed on enhancing the standards within the industry, focusing on tourism products and services, multi-destination itinerary planning, events management, ecotourism, and sustainable principles and guidelines, as well as a grading scheme which will be developed for the industry.
Guyana has achieved universal primary education. The focus is now on achieving universal secondary education by 2016. This has already been achieved in some regions, but more work has to be done in regions 1, 7, 8, and 9. There are plans to build and extend more schools with the intent that every single child of secondary age will be able to access a 5-year secondary education program in each region. The modernization of the Justice Administration System, the MJAS project, has been completed through a loan from the Inter-American Development Bank. Achievements made under the project include amended and new laws, training for personnel within the sector, reduction of the severe case backlog, the refurbishing of courts, increased numbers of judicial officers and training, publication of law reports and their indices online, the establishment of a DPP office in Berbice, computerization of several connected systems, among other aspects. In an effort to respond more promptly to citizens, the Home Affairs Ministry has launched an online crime reporting system which allows citizens who possess or have access to cell phones, computers, or other devices with internet connections to report criminal activities. Citizens can get instant access to security personnel on BlackBerry Messenger via 280-4E429. Reports of corruption can also be made on www.ipaidthebribe.com. These reports can be made anonymously.
There were a number of major contracts that received Cabinet's no objections, including, in education, a number of consultancies that relates to the coaching of teachers and educators at the Cyril Potter School of Education and at the University of Guyana's School of Humanities. In the sector of housing and water, several contracts were approved for road projects, particularly for community roads. Government will be focusing on the issue of the impasse over the University of Guyana's law students' placement at the U Wooding Law School, when heads of government of the Caribbean community meet on March 10 and 11 in St. Vincent and the Grenadines for the 25th intercessional meeting.
The President will be attending the 25th intercessional meeting of the CARICOM Heads of State between March the 10th and the 11th, and that this may be of particular interest to some of you who've been commenting on and covering the Council of Legal Education and the issue of Guyana law students attending UE. This is a matter that will be flagged and will be on the agenda of the Heads of Government Conference that the President will be attending.
As part of an agreement between the University of the West Indies, Council for Legal Education, and UG, every year 25 automatic placements were offered by the Council for Legal Education to UG for entry into its U Wooding Law School. The Council, however, recently took the decision that UG's 2014 batch will not be guaranteed any place at the institution. Government would also be commencing briefing stakeholders with regards to the pre-feasibility and feasibility studies that require to be undertaken for the development of a hydropower in the Middle and Upper Mazaruni.
The Mazaruni Hydro Development Project, there will be a briefing on March the 19th with the Prime Minister and the Minister of Foreign Affairs to brief various national stakeholders on the status of the Mazaruni Hydro Project. In relation to the briefings with the Mazaruni Hydroelectric Project, it will be the agency, the Prime Minister and the Minister of Foreign Affairs with their technical people. But they will be putting out press releases and so on in advance. This is just to give you early warning.
The development of hydropower is among 4 projects being pursued under the rubric of the Guyana-Brazil cooperation. Time now for Dr. Prem Nazir with Perspectives.
Today I want to talk about money laundering. I do not think that anyone will disagree that Guyana should be compliant with the international norms on anti-money laundering and countering financing terrorism. At this time, the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force's advisement suggests that Guyana's plan of corrective action is appropriate. Hence, the opposition's push to formulate ideal regulations without valid information is troubling and perhaps unnecessary given this advisement. And notwithstanding the corrective action now required through the PPPC's government's amendments, in the future, additional amendments and adjustments to remain compliant with the international norms on anti-money laundering will become necessary. Construction and reconstruction of anti-money laundering measures is an evolving process, so there is no need now to believe that additional proposed amendments, as suggested by or proposed by APNU, will solve all the anti-money laundering problems once and for all. The anti-money laundering and countering financing terrorism plan of action has to evolve on the basis of evidence-based information. Few years down the line, perhaps we'll need more amendments. So it's an evolving process. In the fight against money laundering, there is a concern that cash transactions should be less used than formal transactions like those that we use in the banks and so on. Using less cash in the money laundering fight helps to improve financial transparency. Indeed, using no cash in the world would be a very effective weapon against money laundering. The trouble is that people may not want to give up on cash transactions. In many parts of the world, and perhaps more so in the developing world, large segments of the population are more likely to engage in cash transactions rather than in formal financial services like those of the banks, electronic money transfers, etc. And so using cash makes for less transparency in transactions. The international setting body on anti-money laundering and countering financing terrorism, the Financial Action Task Force in June 2011, provided support for financial inclusion, according to researchers Coker and Gentz in 2013. Financial inclusion means use of the banks and other formal financial services and not cash transactions. The researchers said that the Financial Action Task Force would like to see increased use of the banks and other formal financial services and not cash transactions. And it supported this line because financial inclusion results in greater transparency, allowing for better law enforcement of anti-money laundering regulations, and that the Financial Action Task Force believes that the more a customer uses formal financial services like the banks and electronic money transfers, etc., the less that customer would use cash transactions. But Finscope and Research ICT Africa's household surveys on Botswana, Kenya, Namibia, Nigeria, South Africa, Tanzania, Uganda, and Zambia contradict that premise, showing that increased use of formal financial services like those of the banks, electronic money transfers, etc., did not lead to a decreased use of cash, according to the researchers Coker and Gentz in 2013. And these researchers argued that if the Financial Action Task Force wishes to see some link between financial inclusion and financial integrity, there needs to be better knowledge of customer choice between utilizing formal financial services like the banks, electronic transfers, etc., and using cash in transactions. Thank you.
And that's all we have on this week's program, but before we go, here's a recap of the highlights. Guyana signs multi-million-dollar agreement with Japan, government lobbying for citizen support for anti-money laundering bill, and contracts for science and technology advancement handed over to UG. Remember that weekly digests and other government information can be found on our website, www.gina.gov.gy, or you can send us your comments and suggestions at ginagovgy@gmail.com. Thank you for watching, and do join us again next week for another program. Goodbye for now.